Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, State Farm, and WeatherTech. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb. Welcome, everyone, to MotorWeek podcast number 164. And around our, I never could figure out what shape this table was, sort of
Keystone.
U-shaped Keystone. There you go, Keystone-shaped table here in Studio C at MotorWeek World headquarters in Owings Mills, Maryland, is Dave Scribner, our executive producer and head writer. Dave, glad to have you with us. Our road test producer, Ben Davis.
Caffeinated and ready to rock.
Our online content coordinator, Greg Carlos.
Hey, hey.
And Joe Ligo, our video producer and our editor, and basically he's also the guy that has the bell today. Joe, welcome.
Glad to be here.
Okay, we've got a trio of vehicles. We'll talk a little bit about our season 36 just ending. So let's start with basically one of the rarest cars new cars we've ever tested here. The 2017 Lamborghini Centenario, a very limited edition Lamborghini. It's going to be featured on show 3701, which debuts in September. Dave Scribner, why don't you tell us a little about the car? And you drove it, and what was it like?
Well, I drove it for 38 miles total.
Right.
We had very limited time with the car.
Why? Why so few miles?
It's already sold. And,
It's a museum
Some
piece.
very generous owner let us borrow it for a few days and a couple of miles. And like any Aventador, it was certainly very rapid. I got into it once or twice for the camera, mostly trying to not scratch the car. A little nervous about driving it, period. But I don't get the $2.3 million price tag.
But tell us about a little bit about what makes the car so special.
Well,
how
the carbon
few are
fiber
made.
bodywork. They only made 20 coupes and 20 roadsters.
Right.
This is one of the first coupes in the country, I believe.
What do they call it? They're limited. There's a word they have for
And that
this.
I don't know.
The
one-off
rarest
or-
one-offs, the rarest
Very
Lamborghinis.
limited run. It was designed for the 100th anniversary of Lamborghini's birth. Ferruccio Lamborghini's birth.
Yeah.
So
The
it's
man, not the company.
the man, not the
Yeah.
company. So had he lived to see it, he might have appreciated the radical styling and the performance behind it, and I certainly did.
Did you find it drove anything differently than the car it's based on?
The four-wheel steering made a little bit of a difference in some of the corners. High speed, and really need to notice it, so I didn't get into it that much.
Yeah.
But it's there. They say it's great. I didn't experience it that much. But
I wish them luck. I know the owners are hoping that somebody will basically come and just make their investment worthwhile, shall we
as
say.
seen on MotorWeek's worth $20 more now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
20
At least
more
25. The Lamborghini Centenario, everybody else had a chance to crawl through it. Any impressions?
I like the way that, to me, it reminded me of the 60s Batmobile, how everything
It
was
did
kind
look-
of highlighted in red.
Especially
Like the
the
black and
rear.
red.
Yeah, the rear was definitely unique. A lot of the uniqueness to me was lost in a lot of other angles, but it did look awesome from the back. And overall, it is a ton of money, and I was hoping that if you're going to make a car worth that much money and that limitedly rare, that it would look entirely like something onto itself, like Ferrari has done in the past. But it's a lot of money for that car. Yeah.
But in this day and age, for something that rare, obviously it's not out of kilter, or they wouldn't have sold out. It's sold out.
There's
right?
always there's a butt for every seat, as they say.
Yeah.
Ego goes a long way in what you buy.
We were
Amen to that.
we were very fortunate to have a chance to get
Indeed.
the car here. Greg,
sure,
any impression?
Yeah, I mean, at first glance, it's definitely striking. The problem with us is I think we kind of overanalyze it. Ben and I were
Right.
out there when we were doing stand-ups, just really, I mean, over analyzing it. And that's where the problem comes because you're like, well, it's an Aventador and there's a few extra angles here and there and things like that. So you can't really listen to us when we talk about it that way.
So we're
just because
jaded,
we
right?
Exactly. We have been very, very fortunate
Yeah.
to drive a lot of Lamborghinis
Right.
and look at a lot of Lamborghinis. So I don't want to take anything away from the car because it's a special car for sure. But I just wouldn't. I'm not going to put it on that pedestal that most other people probably
I have to tell
will.
you, our building pretty much emptied out when it rolled up.
Right, yeah.
Joe, any comment?
I'm going to nerd out here for a second and say that the footage we got of it is awesome. It's a car that loves the camera and the camera loves it. And we kind of went all out with the different slider shots we got and the driving shots and the GoPro shots. I mean, the road test itself, when the video goes up, I think it's going to be one of the greatest road tests we've ever put together.
Probably one of the most nerve-wracking camera setups because, I mean, you're moving – not only are you moving your expensive equipment around, but you're moving your expensive equipment around a car that costs more than all of our houses combined.
Right. Yeah, you know, once you go to move a tripod and accidentally graze it.
Don't even want to put a suction cup mount on it.
It inspired our A-plus game all around from everyone, for sure.
And you'll see the results of our Lamborghini Centenario test on show 3701, which should be debuting around the 8th and 9th of September on public TV stations everywhere, and about 10 days later on Velocity. Thanks, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Let's move on now to something incredibly more practical. We basically have just had in the new Honda Odyssey. We knew that this year was going to be something we haven't had in a long time, which is okay. We've got a couple of new minivans to talk about, meaning the Odyssey, and last year, obviously, we had the new Pacifica from Chrysler. Who wants to weigh in first on the Odyssey? It doesn't look particularly different. It's obviously new and improved in a lot of areas. What do you think?
I haven't driven it.
I drove it a fair amount, and I like it a lot. I thought I really liked the Pacifica, and then I got into the Odyssey, and then I'm reminded why the Odyssey sells so well, because it's really put together nicely. And I'm always skeptical about a high gear number transmission. This has the 10-speed, but I was super impressed with it.
It was very smooth. I've probably driven the Pacifica that we have here as our long-term more than anybody else, and I love the vehicle. I still maintain that if I was buying a minivan, if it doesn't have fold into the floor second row seats, it doesn't appeal to me. But I'm not normal. Everybody knows that, right?
Let me isolate that audio.
Let me see if you agree with this. My impression is that most people that buy these vehicles don't necessarily ever take the second row seats out.
Yeah,
Therefore, the new slide feature on the Odyssey is very appealing. And you talk about that. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in that camp where stow and go is awesome, but I don't think it would be a feature that would be my decisive purchasing.
And you
tool.
have a family with children.
Yeah, I mean, for the one or two times that I might take the second row out, I can just muscle it out.
Okay.
But I directly compare the Odyssey and the Pacifica feverishly over the last few days. And the thing about the Odyssey is that it drives more like a car than the Pacifica. I believe that the engines are similar, the power output is similar, but the transaxle or the differential, whatever they're using in the Odyssey, handles power and traction a lot better than the Pacifica. Especially in wet weather, the Odyssey takes the cake there.
I just noticed that the other day. I had the Pacifica at a stoplight, and I'm like not trying to go fast, and I still felt a little bit of like slip and slide. And
try it in the wet sometime.
The steering is much more civilized in the Odyssey too. The Pacifica seems to be a little heavy at times, which can translate to a rough highway, kind of jerking you around a little bit. And it's hit or miss inside. There's a lot of features I like about the Odyssey inside, and there's a lot of features I like about the Pacifica inside, some more than others. To me, I'd have to cross-pollinate and build a Frankenstein minivan.
You know, I think I can sum up what you're saying even more concisely and simply say I felt like the Odyssey was driving a true luxury vehicle. It had that level of refinement and finesse. I like the Pacifica. I'm a huge Pacifica fan, but when you look at overall sophistication in just how it responds and what it makes you, it's so quiet on the inside that I really think that Honda has pushed the bar up.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. If we could pick on one thing, Ben and I, again, as we overanalyze cars and look at them for a long time, longer than any human should, we noticed that there's that floating roof line, which is on every single car essentially now these days, every SUV van. This one might be one of the worst.
The Odyssey's floating roof line
of it. I mean, it just looks like they said,
we got to have that.
Yeah, we have to do this, so quickly paint that B-pillar. It was not. It's not pretty.
I like the Pacifica styling a little bit better Well, actually,
I do too.
lot better.
I think it's a lot more attractive. I think that's a very, very good
But
point.
I think the thing is here is, in my opinion, it has never been a better time to buy a minivan because they've done so much to stand out from crossovers. If I was shopping a Pilot and an Odyssey, I feel like you just get so much more with the Odyssey. I mean, sure, you get the ground clearance and all-wheel drive in a Pilot, but all the other like gimmicky features and stuff, the intercom system and the screens and the headphones and the Bluetooth and all the other little kid gadgets for the backseat riders. I mean, if you're the kind of person who really likes that stuff, you can't get that on SUVs.
Except the one thing that you can get on the SUVs, that there's only one minivan that offers it, and that's Toyota, and that is some form of all-wheel drive. And I just had the Pacifica up in Vermont on some very rough, muddy roads. It got me where I was going, but it didn't like it. You know, it was a little too low to the ground, so that's something to consider, which is a good segue into the third vehicle we're going to talk about, which is the 2018 Chevrolet Traverse. This is the longest wheelbase of the three almost full-size crossovers that GM's going to build this year, being the GMC Acadia, the new Buick Enclave, and the Traverse. Dave Scrivener, who has a substantial family at home, just came back from driving the new Traverse with his family in tow. Want to tell us about it?
Well, Chevrolet had a pretty unique press trip for this. They've had this Find New Roads campaign going for our previous trips, and they invited us to come up with 5 of my kids. Went to Michigan, picked it up in Detroit, had a half-day immersion with the car at their Eastern Market. They rented a place. And we talked about the styling of it and the interior cargo capacity and things like that. They had activities for the kids to pack the car with all the groceries you could fit into it and things like that. Then we drove it to Grand Rapids for the weekend and back and had a pretty good experience with that. They've really gone with the family-friendly features, you know, as far as you can go with an SUV as opposed to a minivan with some of the gimmick stuff. But the tilt slide for the second row, it can tilt and slide with a cowl seat installed in it.
Oh, really? Oh, that's
I'll
pretty cool.
unbuckle it. If it's latched in, it'll slide with the car seat. I thought was pretty cool.
Just don't leave the kid in the seat.
No kid installed in the seat. But what I thought was they had a demonstration for the kids. They had a thermometer in the car and showed how leaving kids unattended in the rear seat or pets is dangerous. And it was 86 degrees outside and 134 in the car. They have carried over Chevrolet's rear seat reminder chime to look in the back seat. If the door's been opened recently, make sure there's no one left behind, a kid or a pet, because it's, you know, and I've certainly done it myself.
I got to say that actually works. When we
does.
first heard about that, I thought
we thought it was
kind of weird.
gimmick.
But yeah, when it does go off, I do look in the back, even though I don't have kids.
It's a preventable accident. It's easy to overlook that.
I might forget an ice cream cake in the back. Who knows?
But it has great features, had pretty good power in the V6 engine, and the styling is much more sleek than it had been before. A little upscale look to it, I thought.
It's a bit lighter. Did you notice any difference in the driving aspect? It's bigger, but yet lighter than the old one.
It was smooth. I didn't notice the lightness to it so much. Didn't feel ungainly in the corners, certainly. It was a nice highway cruiser.
It is, I think it's the largest the largest basically crossover you can buy, because it's larger than even the new Atlas from Volkswagen.
They expect to have best-in-class third-row legroom, cargo capacity, and passenger volume.
Which wasn't bad before.
So it's kind of like the largest unibody front-drive 3-row out
Utility. Yeah, I'm grudgingly starting to call them SUVs instead of crossovers because everyone else is, but...
You're holding back on that.
Yeah, well,
kind of a
you know,
gray area.
To me, an SUV is still something that's capable off-road, and these crossovers are basically not.
It's a family hauler.
It's a family hauler.
Not a boat hauler.
Yeah.
And it does have, you said the weird things, the base engine is the 3.6-liter V6, but then in RS trim only, you can get a Turbo 4, right?
This is their new sporty trim along with the High Country trim, which is ultra-luxurious.
Which sort of doesn't make sense, but...
I drove the V6 only.
Yeah. In perspective, it's larger than the Acadia. The GMC Acadia has been to go head-to-head with things like the Pilot. And it'll be the new Buick Enclave is on the same wheelbase as the Chevy, so it'll be about the same size. Dave, while you're here, since we don't get the pleasure of your company that much, we're heading into season 37. Goss's Garage, obviously, we have taped those. We do those in block production in the summer. Any new subjects that we are looking at with Pat this year that you want to share with us?
Continuing our theme of not do it yourself, but know it yourself, and the questions to ask when you go to a dealership or a repair shop to get fixed to the car. We're trying to get some classic cars back in the mix. We've got a Jeep Wagoneer being restored. There's a couple of segments worth of that. Some basic niggly problems that people encounter all the time, and how to, like, death wobble with the suspension bushings all worn out, and how to diagnose that and how dangerous it can be.
Pat also looked ahead in the trends, like autonomous vehicles.
Some of the maintenance needed for some of that stuff. You get ice cake on some of the sensors, or even smokers who fog up the cameras inside the car can affect how the systems work. So
what, like a Subaru eyesight thing? If there's like a dust or film on the
film on the windshield, from smokers
yeah.
or heavy, whatever.
They don't work.
And don't work. The cameras can't see out.
A lot of people have asked me over the years, does Pat really know what he's talking about, or is he just some talent for TV?
No,
what he told me one time, he used to have 70 periodicals, or now is it more than that? Some enormous number of magazines he reads every month.
He reads every morning, like from 5 to 7 or
5
something.
to 7.
He knows his stuff.
He knows his
He
stuff.
walks the shop floor with his guys constantly and sees day-to-day problems as they develop and trends, notices them. So I think he's got it covered pretty well.
I think he's been one of our crowning jewels for 36 years.
Coming up,
going on 37. Okay, let's move on now to our lightning round. 2 minutes where we'll debate a trending automotive topic. When time is up, Joe Ligo will head for the bell. MotorWeek Season 36 coming to a close. What vehicle or vehicles from the past year were your favorite, and anything that we're getting for Season 37 you're looking forward to? Ben, I'm going to turn to you first because that seems to be that's where your heart is.
I'll keep it quick. My favorite car this last year was our long-term Passat by a long stretch.
You did love that.
Which I thought was just plain vanilla.
I know. I just loved it.
I'm
It
with
just
Ben.
felt great.
Very useful car.
I
It
dig
felt
it.
great. And I'm most looking forward to hopefully a mid-cycle refresh on the GTI this year, hopefully.
Oh, cool. All of Volkswagen.
Volkswagen.
Greg?
Oh, man. I have a whole list here. The top of the line was probably the 911 GT3. Just personally, the trip was incredible, driving on a track in Spain. And then professionally, we really got a lot of work done and shot a road test in a day, which doesn't happen very often. So that was fun. And then for some reason, I can't get the Corvette Grand Sport out of my mind, just for the sole fact of how much better on the track it was than I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to throw a shout out to that one.
Dave?
Of our test cars, I really enjoyed the Camaro ZL when we had at Roebling in January. It's just I'd buy that over a Corvette, truthfully. Mm-hmm. And I also knocked off a bucket list this year, and I drove the Porsche 959 last season.
That was cool.
Always admired that car and got behind the wheel a little bit compared to the new 911.
I think I drove it like 6 feet to reposition it. It's pretty cool.
I got on the racetrack up to about 130 or so. It's just
bragger.
a time machine.
Yeah, seriously.
You're a brave
It was
man.
great. On old tires, yeah.
Joe, how about you?
What I'm looking forward to most in the new season is, I guess, the Tesla Model 3, but then also all the other cars that are supposedly going to come out of the woodwork to compete with it. The new Leaf, and Ford supposedly has something in the works, and on, to really see, like, is the electric car really going to happen, or is this, what's going to go on with that? And then in the previous season, you can all laugh at me because I'm an old man at heart, but I really liked the new Lincoln Continental.
Well,
you
it
can
surprised
laugh.
all of us. It was a far better car than I think anyone expected.
It was nice to see when everyone's going to numbers and letters for car names, to see an old nameplate resurrected and executed pretty well.
It was very well
Was
done.
a highlight for me.
No, that's a good one. I'm kind of split. I think the two cars that I enjoyed after hearing so much about them the most this last year, one was the Chevy Bolt EV, because it had basically been in the wind for so long, and I'm very much a new technology guy. But on the other hand, the car that I think I'm salivating over was the Aston Martin DB11. Both of those just spectacular cars. My curiosity is up about the Dodge Demon. I mean, when we get it actually on our own track, I think I will have my curiosity cured. Any car that can be that much of a throwback and get that much attention before it even basically they sell the first one, that's pretty amazing.
It's a one-trick pony, though.
It's a one-trick pony,
The
without
Trackhawk
doubt.
Jeep. More my speed.
Yeah. Well, the new Trailhawk.
Oh, I got that one coming.
The Trailhawk,
Yeah.
which basically looks
Trackhawk,
like
yeah.
Trackhawk rather, which will be basically it's a demon
A
in a
Hellcat Jeep.
Yeah, Hellcat Jeep.
Yeah, it's
Sign me up.
fascinating stuff. I agree with you. I want to see it in the flesh before
Yeah.
I pass judgment on it. But we're over time.
Okay,
so
we're
on
going
to
to
the
move
next
on
thing.
to Enrique. Enrique, he's got on a recent episode, he said, Pat Goss said, tune-ups don't really exist anymore. Why is that? I have a 98 Nissan Pathfinder. I called a couple of shops for a tune-up, and they quoted me between $500 and $600, which totally shocked me. My Pathfinder gets terrible gas mileage. I don't want to get rid of it. If tune-ups don't exist, then what can I do to improve my MPG? Well, what Pat was talking about, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, was the traditional tune-up, which was plugs and condenser and rotor and things inside a
Plugs,
distributor.
wires.
And
Not there anymore.
most of those things aren't there anymore. Plug wires. I did look up, however, tune-up kit for his Pathfinder, and indeed, they're out there. And they run about $250 to $350 on Amazon, or even over at Rock Auto. They have all the parts too. And what you're getting is plug wires, all the filters, and I think this vehicle even still does have a distributor cap. So things that actually kind of even went beyond what we used to talk about a tune-up. But I have to admit, $500 to $700, that's a lot of money. So if you've got those kind of problems,
Half labor in that regard.
he needs to have somebody put it on a good analyzer and figure out why it's not running efficient. It
Also,
could
just
be
drive
the
the
plug
car
wires.
gently and
Yeah.
keep the tires inflated, keep the junk out of the trunk. There's a bunch of common
I
sense
mean,
things you
what
can
kind
do.
of mileage is a 98 Pathfinder going to get anyways?
You're kind of behind the 8-ball anyway.
I was going to
with
say,
that.
it's not like a Prius or anything.
It probably
I mean, that
only
was a
did
truck.
16 or 17 when it was new.
Yeah, but I always thought tune-up, I'm fairly young. I always thought tune-ups were, like you said, points, plug, wires, tinker with the carburetor, all stuff that's controlled by a computer. Now,
Once again,
I mean,
Joe's
even,
an old man because no car is a carburetor anymore. and
Right.
Right.
no
Well,
points.
that's what I was going to say. Like,
But even when you were growing up, that was the case. That's
Yeah,
what
you're
I'm
not
saying.
that old,
What are you
Joe.
talking about?
right.
The average spark plugs in a vehicle today it lasts 100,000 miles, and even in this 98 Pathfinder, I bet they had platinum plugs in those things, or something that probably lasts a long time.
I just took plugs out of my wife's Jeep at 125, and one of them was pretty gnarly looking.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
but,
don't forget to do that, for sure.
So, Enrique, I think our advice is go get someone that knows what they're talking about, maybe a different technician than the one you were talking to analyze the vehicle, spend some money on that, and find out what it needs. It may well need $600 worth of work, but I don't think I'd spend that without knowing a whole lot more than just
Diagnose
a
the
quote.
problem. and
Diagnose the
will
problem.
it solve the problem for that money?
Don't ask
good
for a
call
tune-up. Go in and ask for a diagnostic test to see how the vehicle's performance can be improved.
Tune-up says, take me for a ride, please.
Yeah, there
Right,
you
yeah,
go.
that was
That's-
something that Pat said was in the episode where he says the thing about the tune-ups. He says, don't go in telling the person what you want fixed, tell them what the symptoms are, and then they can diagnose
They
it.
can
Yeah,
diagnose
poor
it
gas
aside.
mileage. Didn't
Yeah.
say if it was running rough, so it might be running fine. Okay, rant and rave section. Anything sticking in anyone's craw these days that you want to complain about? I'll start.
Uh-oh.
Can we ask
It's
for
not a
raise?
big thing, but I've been searching online for a used car, which I'm just at this point still looking. And so the last time I bought a used car online, I was able to go on, talk to somebody, communicate with somebody at a dealership, do my bargaining online. And basically when I showed up, I drove it, I gave them the check and drove home. It was easy. I don't know what's changed. Maybe you can tell me. But so far, when I've tried to do that this time, no one wants to deal online. They want you to come see them face to face before they will even talk to you. And they're all acting like, oh, well, that's the price. Well, everybody knows that, especially when it comes to used cars, it's all about making the deal. What's going on out there? Is it people have
I have a
abused
guess.
this? And
I think that as online car shopping has become more and more popular,
it's like over a third of all cars
Yeah.
are sold online
I think
now.
dealerships probably get a lot of online tire kickers,
Right.
And they just don't want to waste time. And probably what the sales guy's probably thinking is, if he's not willing to walk down, come down here, I'm not going to even bother talking.
Except that so many of the cars now you're going long distance for. It could be
True, yeah.
200 miles away.
I drove to Jersey looking for a car this summer and didn't buy it, but
you
it was the most promising car that I was looking for.
Did you drive up there? Did you get a price before? I mean, did you negotiate before you went, or just you saw it online?
I want to drive the car
first.
first.
Well, I guess that's what, if I want to do it, I guess that's what I'm going to have to do. Just get my butt in a seat and go see it.
I'm not going to buy it online. I'm going to drive it first.
Absolutely. Now, when I bought my used Ranger pickup truck, we had everything set before I went up there. I didn't buy it before I drove it, but basically it was new. It was only a couple of years old, so I knew it was going to be in pretty good shape. The other thing, though, that I do find a big plus is that the reputable dealers all have some kind of a title search that you can get into for free. So pretty much before you go up, whether it's a one owner or whatever, check the Carfax. And when they don't have that, I think that's a red flag. Mm-hmm. Well, that was mine. They give anybody a chance to think of anything else?
I say that covers it for me. I'm sitting happy.
All right. We're going to close out our MotorWeek podcast number 164. I want to thank Dave Scrivener, Ben Davis, Greg Carlos, Joe Ligo. I'd also like to thank the folks that you don't necessarily hear when we do one of these. One is audio engineer Jim Bigwood, who makes sure what you do hear sounds clear. I won't say intelligent. That's kind of up to us. And our podcast creator, Bob Mixter. Everybody out there, if you're not familiar with MotorWeek, shame on you, but you can catch the video version of it on public television stations around the country. Go to our website, motorweek.org, for all the listings. And also every week, several times a week, but premiering every Tuesday night on the Velocity Cable channel. I'm John Davis. For all of us at MotorWeek, thanks for being with us for 36 seasons. We're looking forward to 37, and we'll talk to you and see you next time.
You've been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, State Farm, and WeatherTech. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series, each week on your local PBS station.